What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I'm going to be talking about a ton of weapon changes that we got in the past few days in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. This actually happened several days ago, but the patch notes were updated and there was a lot of initially hidden changes that were made during this patch that a lot of people didn't know about. For some of these changes, I am going to be showing you examples. If I can, I'll show you some before and after, but with other ones, I'm basically just going to be reading off the patch notes and telling you what happened because some of them don't really require visuals, and also some aren't really as important as others. So first up, we got a change to the R3K. The R3K got slightly lower idle sway when you're aiming down sight, which is an excellent change. We've been asking for this change for quite some time with the R3K. This makes it a lot more precise, as it should be because it is a burst gun. And in addition to this, they changed the burst cooldown time. So the delay between each one of your bursts when you're firing the R3K, instead of 300 milliseconds, it's now about 250 milliseconds. So it was reduced only slightly, but it is definitely noticeable. Moving on to the Volk Retro. The Volk Retro is that ballistic version of the Volk, and by the way, we do see the Volk Vintage in Epic Gun Games, so this means even if you missed the Volk Retro, which was a summer exclusive for one of those Days of Summer events, if you missed out on the Retro, you can't get the Retro anymore, but it looks like the Volk Vintage will be coming soon. I expect that to be coming within the next couple weeks or so, and that's going to be a craftable version of the Retro. With this gun, they actually provided quite a bit of a buff to it. They provided additional stability on the first few bullets when you're firing with this, which is huge. If you look at the before and after with the recoil, really focus on the first few shots. This is the before, and as you can see, the recoil kicks in pretty much immediately. As soon as you fire your first shot, you get recoil. Now have a look at after. As you can see here, the first 3 or so shots are going into pretty much the exact same hole, and this gun does have a great 3-shot kill range, so as long as you're hitting your first shots, you're going to be really accurate with this gun. In addition to that, they gave it a little bit of a boost to its aim down sight time, so it is more along the lines of the average assault rifle rather than the Volk. As for the RVN, they reduced the recoil within each burst a little bit, so you fire a 2-round burst, those 2 bullets are now going to be a bit closer together with the RVN. And also with the epic variant of that, which is a blowout, they increase the distance and the spread of the range of damage when you get a melee kill with that variant. As for the G-Rail, all of the burst variants of the G-Rail, so the V2, the V3, and the V4, got a reduction to their burst cooldown, so their burst delay has been reduced just slightly, kind of like the R3K. It was a very slight reduction, but it does make it a more viable burst weapon. As for the RPR, you guys may have noticed this, in the assault rifle mode, they significantly increased the rate of fire on this, which honestly I didn't think was needed at all. I really liked the way it was before, but you can see now the rate of fire in assault rifle mode is quite a bit higher, and they also reduced the view kick just a little bit on the Ripper variant. It definitely still has a decent amount of recoil, but it's slightly more viable now. Moving on to the Karma got a couple little buffs here. They extended the mid to long range capabilities to better compete with the other SMGs, and they reduced the horizontal recoil slightly. So this is nice to see with the Karma. It's going to be noticeably more accurate than it was before, and it was already quite accurate. So now it's definitely going to be that super accurate SMG, and it's also got a little bit of range added to it. I'll be honest, I haven't tested this inch by inch or anything like that, so I don't have a range chart for you. I honestly just haven't had the time to test that kind of stuff. That's the kind of testing that takes a lot more time than other simple testing, and I wanted to get this video out to you in a reasonable amount of time here. But it did get a slight buff to its range. Moving on to the FHR, they slightly reduced the hipfire spread, which is nice to see. I think that gun definitely excels up close while hipfiring, and this just makes it a little bit more viable. And that's really good to see with the FHR, because I feel like that was one of the guns that was definitely lower tier, so now it's much more viable when it's hip firing. For the Raw, they actually increased the view kick slightly, and I definitely noticed this when I hopped into a game with the Raw, and I don't really like this change too much. I think the Raw was in an okay place just before this patch, but apparently they wanted to nerf it a little bit, so it does have noticeably more view kick to it. As for the Proteus, the change that I really wanted to see with the Proteus, I made a video about this a little while ago. They reduced the spread while aiming down sight in the sniper mode, and I'm super happy to see this. Basically what happens is you fire 4 pellets, even in sniper mode when you're aiming down sight, and as it was before, those pellets were spreading out a decent amount. So if you were ever trying to get a long-range shot, keeping in mind that this is a sniper rifle, a lot of the times you would miss one of those pellets, and that's all it takes is missing one of those pellets to the upper body to not get a kill with the Proteus. So it felt like it kind of defeated the purpose of using it as a sniper rifle because it wasn't even really accurate at longer ranges. There was a certain amount of random spread attributed to it. So they reduced that random spread, and they also improved the damage multipliers to the head and the torso. So what this means is we are going to be seeing much more consistent one-shot kills with the Proteus in sniper mode if you're shooting them in the torso or the head. And I'm really happy to see this change. Moving on to the 2187s, they actually reduce the ranges when you're using it akimbo, and I think this is an okay change. I honestly was okay with the 2187 akimbos before, but I do understand the complaints. I do understand that a lot of people don't like them being used against them, so I can see why they slightly reduce this range when using it with the akimbo attachment. As for the EMC Switchblade, this is the epic variant of the EMC that turns that pistol into a shotgun. They actually increased the range slightly on this, which I'm quite surprised to see. I already felt like this variant was quite good, keeping in mind that I don't have this variant myself, but I picked it up a few times, and I've also used it in Epic Gun Game quite a few times, and I always felt like it was great. So they actually gave it a little bit of a buff, and I'm interested to see how that one plays out. For the Hailstorm Ordnance, which is the epic variant of the Hailstorm, they improved the view kick a little bit, so they actually reduced the recoil slightly, and this is nice to see. I did use the Ordnance a few times, and I noticed it was really hard to control that recoil. It was really hard to land all of your shots into your target, so now it's a little bit better and easier to use. For the Oni Tengu, which is the one that reverses the fire rate, it's the epic variant that reverses that fire rate, so instead of starting off slow and then ramping up to faster, it starts off fast and then ramps down and shoots slower. This one got a little bit of a reduction to its horizontal recoil, so it's going to be a bit easier to control for your first few shots, and I think that's a good start with this gun. I feel like this variant is pretty much completely useless. I absolutely hate it. Maybe this will make it a little bit more tolerable, but even then, I don't see myself using this variant at all. And then finally, we got another nerf to the VPR. With the VPR, they significantly increased the hipfire recoil. So unlike with the other SMGs, when you increase the hipfire recoil, it basically just increases your spread as you fire more. Not with this. They actually increase the view kick with this so that you kick straight up with your recoil even when you're hip firing. And this makes it so it's not really viable to hip fire at those medium to somewhat longer ranges. Basically, if you're not within the same room as the guy, you probably don't want to be hip firing. In addition to that, they also slightly reduced the effective damage ranges. Again, I didn't do all the hand testing on this or anything, but just know that the ranges have been reduced a little bit for the VPR. And that's going to wrap it up for all of the changes that they made. This is definitely the biggest weapon balancing change that they've made in quite a long time with this game. And overall, I'm quite happy with most of the changes here. They definitely addressed some of the guns that I felt were a bit on the weaker side and needed a little bit of a buff. And I also agree with a lot of these buffs that they implemented. I don't feel like they took anything too far. I feel like they just made it so we're going to see a little bit more viability in the guns that weren't used too often. And with that, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think of all these changes? Have you noticed any of them significantly? Have you started to use some of these guns a little bit more since these changes? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.